It is a brand new edition of Flyers Daily. How about a Monday edition for, April 7th, 2025 Flyers Daily, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. We made some memories last week on the podcast. Some great interviews. Brad Shaw, Jamie Drysdale, Nick Seeler coming up tomorrow. Can't forget about Boosh, but joining us on Monday, as he always does. It's aptly titled Mondays with Meltzer. It is Bill Meltzer, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and NHL.com. Billy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Jason?
Hanging in, got good energy through the weekend. Next treatment coming up Thursday, but that'll be 6 down, 2 to go. So we're looking forward to that. But Bill, we saw NHL history yesterday. I didn't think he'd get to it this year. Alex Ovechkin, when he missed as many games as he did, to have 42 goals and I think 62 games or something is ridiculous at 30. It's ridiculous in any season. At 39 years of age, it's extra ridiculous. He's got a flair for the dramatic. We saw 895. What was your impressions of what took place there on Long Island?
Well, I mean, to me, the number one thing was, it was a tremendous goal that he scored, too. That was, you obviously you'll take it however you can get it, but thankfully it wasn't some rebound that bounced off of his shin pad or something. I mean, they all count the same. But
a shot and a goal.
Exactly. That's, one of, if not the greatest pure shooters that there's ever been in the game, it's amazing, as you said, to do it. And how about the fact that the games play comparison with Gretzky, where it's crazy.
Bill, the numerology going on with this record is absolutely insane. Let me give you a couple of numbers to go along with that. Gretzky's 894th goal, by the way, came against the Islanders way back 31 years or whatever it was ago. Ovechkin's 895th goal versus the Islanders. Absolutely incredible. April 6, 2004, yesterday, when he got 895, that was also the day back in 2004 that the Capitals won the draft lottery to select him number 1 overall. How fitting. April 6, 2024, he obviously breaks the record, 895. Ovechkin, 1,487 games, 895 goals. Gretzky, 1,487 games, 894 goals. I can't even believe these numbers matching up the way they do.
Oh, the serendipity of that whole thing, and I also, given the leg injury earlier this year, kind of a really slow period of the season, and it's but I mean he. Clearly, he's in that best of the best all time. One of those guys. It's not obviously like a surefire first year Hall of Famer.
Yeah. All time, right?
And all time, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and at a certain point, it transcends what uniform the guy wears, or you're witnessing something really, really special, something that. I certainly thought that Gretzky's goal record would never be broken.
Yeah.
For even when Ovechkin was on that pace to break it, boy, he's got to maintain that for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And but there you have it, and the fact that and also to me it also underscores just how incredible Gretzky was, because Gretzky, if he never scored a single goal because of all the assists, would still be the NHL all-time point leader. So really just speaks to both hockey players. So I think it's the best of both scenarios.
It's the greatness factor, and what is the chemistry of greatness? You have the great one and Gretzky, and the numbers, I mean, they speak for themselves, and I mean the eye test matched it perfectly with him, obviously. And then you have the great 8 to break that record. I mean, we'll see if he can get to 1,000. Somebody tweeted me earlier and said, "Can he get to 1,000?" I said, "I'm done doubting this guy, because
and
not slowing down at all, Bill.
Not at all. And there's no reason to believe that as long as he wants to keep playing.
Yep.
As long as he stays reasonably healthy, there's no reason he can't. I mean, for years to come, he go to his office at the left circle and smash one-timers into the net. That's he can do that for years to come. And also that, I mean, there were period. I think people forget that like there was a period in his career where Ovechkin was such a freight train physically that he was really at risk of breaking down much younger than then he's ended up playing at the top level because he had to change his game just a little bit.
Yep.
To be able to have that longevity. So a lot of players have that kind of thing in some in the middle of their career where they have to make some adjustments.
Yeah,
he was no exception to that.
He had to make adjustments to win the cup too.
Well, he did.
And Barry Trotz got him to do it.
Yeah, and
got him to buy in.
Yeah, and I mean I remember distinctly his first goal against the Flyers. Niedermaki was in goal. The game was in Philly, and for the first time I saw that one timer of his up close, and I just remember turning to Anthony Mingione was sitting next to me at the time, and I was like, "Oh, good night. What are you doing with that other than facing off at center ice?" So it was just a howitzer up in the top corner. No goalie in the world was stopping that, and he hasn't slowed down. I mean, he was he was a teenager at the time.
It is astounding. I remember watching him practice one time. This is many years ago, maybe around 2009-ish. They were practicing at the Flyers training center because the Wells Fargo system was available. And I remember watching him, and every time he shot the puck, he shot it as hard as he could. He never just flipped pucks into the net. Everything was at full tilt all the time. And I mean, the shot is it's incredibly hard, powerful, heavy, accurate, all of those things. And it's just incredible what he's done. And the other thing I want to talk about with him before we get to the week that was for the Flyers, how good he's been for the NHL. Yes. This is a Russian player that comes over, and I mean, what he's meant to the Washington market, yes. I mean, it cannot be understated. I mean, he has made that franchise into such a powerful, financial entity. Yeah. But the way he celebrates even his goals, and he seems to have a childish celebration that's very on brand, and he's never lost it. When he won cup, obviously, he was just incredibly all over the place and emotional, and it was fun. To me, he's just been an entertainer. He's always given pucks to kids over the glass from the time he came into the league in sticks. His entire career, he just gets it. He has been good for the game.
No, for sure, and he's personable when the cameras aren't on him too.
Yeah,
I remember one time he was walking by the locker room area, and somebody came downstairs. You know how in the concourse level at Wells Fargo Center, the giant pizza slices.
Yeah,
and he's like that's big as my kid's arm.
Yeah,
he was warming up with the guy, but just a little thing like that. I mean, just very, very nice, very approachable, and also for a guy who scores as many goals he has. I remember his rookie year. I was doing a thing on NHL.com. He was playing with Dina Zubris, the old Flyer, and Zuby was actually his first center in the NHL, and Zuby actually had a 20-goal year that year, or whatever, and he did what a good teammate's supposed to do. You credit your line mate, you credit your teammates, right? And Zuby just last he's like, he doesn't need me. Like that guy's gonna score like crazy, whoever his line mate is. I just happen to be the guy on his line right now.
He came into the NHL at 20 years of age. In his rookie year, played 81 games at 52 goals. You look at the numbers; they're eye popping. He's been great for the game. So congrats to him. Absolutely. And may he never wear another jersey. I like maybe him and Crosby, who both end up in this division, never wear another jersey. And it was a celebration in New York. I thought Wayne Gretzky's words were really impactful as well. And you can see he was emotional when he said, I told him I would be the first guy to shake his hand. And when he shook his hand, it looked like Gretzky got a little emotional. So, and I think it brings Gretzky back to the Gordie Howe days, and good on Wayne for wearing the button to bring Gordie Howe into the building.
That was another tremendous touch.
Yep.
Really obviously his relationship with Gordie till back to his own childhood, and I know it meant a lot to Mark and Marty, and to Gordie's grandkids and the rest of that too, because that's a tremendous family, and I'm just it was great for Wayne to do that for Gordy's legacy.
Yeah, the reverence he has for Gordie Howe. I mean, he speaks about it to this day with equally as much reverence as he always has. Bill, let's get to the week that was for the Flyers. They go on this winning streak when Brad Shaw comes in. And, a lot of people are worried, they're getting the new coach bump at the wrong time of the year. They're going to ruin their draft position. I wasn't really worried about it because I always believe that water finds its level.
Yeah.
And, there's times in a year when teams that aren't very good do run off 3 games in a row. They beat Montreal, Buffalo, and Nashville. They came back Saturday night after a pretty long break. I thought they played a pretty good game, especially through 2 periods.
Yeah.
But you knew in the third you were going to get it from Montreal because that was a huge game for them.
Yeah, and that was just the whole thing, that sense of urgency where Montreal's fighting for a playoff spot, and they dialed it up 2 levels. I mean, the second period, I felt really bad for Sam Ursa because he was so good through 2 periods. Yeah. It was kind of a microcosm of where Sam has been the last year and this year, where I thought the first 40 minutes of that game, he looked like a real number 1 NHL goalie.
Yeah.
And then in the third period, there were 2 that he'd went back.
Yeah, he made 2 incredible save in the first on line A, a great save in the second too. And then, the Hudson one that beats him down in RVH, maybe a little too early there. He beats him over the year. Sometimes I look at that one and I know everybody looks at it, it's a bad goal. He's playing a percentage there. The percentage of times that guys can do that in the NHL, it looks bad when it happens, but the percentage of times that a guy can hit that little window is very small. Mm-hmm. But I still thought, in looking back at the goal, I thought he was a little premature in getting into it. The other thing with this team is, Brad Shaw obviously named the interim. We had him on last week, Bill. And I'll get to this email because I get this from Jeff Kirsch. He says maybe an Ask Billy question out of the blue. Say, Jason, happy belated birthday. I hope that next year at this time, you'll be in the best of health. I do too, and I will be. Mm-hmm. He said, your interview with Brad Shaw was simply awesome. It was so refreshing to hear the thoughts of such a cerebral coach. And I was genuinely impressed with his knowledge and thoughtfulness. After the, quote, Torts experience, I'm sure the players are also enjoying a different approach as the season winds down. My question for you and Billy is simple. What are the odds he gets the gig? And something really stuck out to me in my conversation when I asked him. I said, do you want the head coaching job? And it wasn't a hell yeah, absolute. He kind of couched it a little bit. I interpreted that, Bill, as a bit of a self-protection mechanism. Yeah. As a guy who's talked to a lot of teams about head coaching jobs and hasn't gotten them, you don't want to set yourself up for that disappointment again. But he did say he does want it. What are the chances he gets it?
I wish that opportunity was there, and the very least the Flyers will talk to him.
Yep.
Unfortunately, once a coach gets, I call it Craig Ramsey syndrome, where a guy gets paid. He's a career assistant coach, and actually, actually Brad Shaw was on a head coach track at the beginning, but his opportunity to move up to the NHL was as an assistant, and he's very good at it. And to me, I often also liken Brad Shaw with John Tortorella. He was kind of the E.J. Maguire, the Tortorella's Keenan,
the yin to his yang.
yeah, like but it, just a softer touch, and I know Shawzy has used that terminology, a little bit of softer touch, and so he would give players a lot of information, not sugarcoating things, but just in a in a much calmer fashion. Yep. and really very detail oriented. It's not as much emotional with him. It's more clinical, more cerebral. Again, like Craig Ramsey was.
A lot of nuance to it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of nuance to it. Video to back it up. Yep. Just a very brainy kind of coach. Unfortunately, sometimes those guys do get pegged as well. He's a better assistant than head coach. I'm trying to remember the last time a guy who had never been a long-term or full season NHL head coach got the real first opportunity to start a season as head coach in his 60s.
Yeah, and
I can't come up with any.
Yeah,
so that's that I think works against Brad, but I think he's earned that opportunity. But I just think that also given they're going to want another voice in there, so somebody that they think could be the coach for. Of course, in the NHL, you're hired to be fired. Everybody knows that, but somebody who could be the coach for 4 years, however long. 4 years is a long lifespan for a coach nowadays.
It's almost double the average.
Yeah. So, at the very least, though, they'll speak with him. I have zero doubt that even if he's not offered the job as head coach, he'll have the opportunity to stay on in his current role as an associate coach, coaching a penalty kill, all those things that if he wants to stay here and do that, that'll be there for him. I just look at where I think they're going, and unfortunately, I don't think Shazi is going to stay on as the head coach, but I hope, part of me hopes I'm proven wrong, because I really like him in so many respects.
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredibly intelligent hockey man. We had Jamie Drysdale on and talking about the things that make him such a good coach and good teacher. And Drysdale talked about he notices things like the way you have the blade of your stick on a rush attempt. Is it open? Is it closed? The littlest detail. But we know those littlest details make enormous differences. And he is a detail-oriented guy. I'm in the same thinking that you are, with one caveat. I always say, doing sports radio for so long, you get so many phone calls, no matter what team it was. Fire the coach, get rid of, he's a bum, right? Like, that's the emotional fan response when teams struggle. But I always would counter with it, well, if not him, who? Don't just come to me with the problem, come to me with the solution. Who is the right guy? Now, I don't know who's going to be available after the season, after the playoffs. I don't know who the right guy is. But, I mean, the right guy might be John Cooper, but he's not getting fired.
Yeah.
But do they have a backward step next year? And then he's available. So could you see like those timelines matching up? Brad Shaw comes in for a year or two, and then the right guy is there. I know Flyer fans don't want to hear be patient much longer, but that's a scenario maybe that could play out. But again, it's all going to depend on who is available.
And a guy like Woodcroft's been out there all season.
Yep.
So that's a guy who I would actually put on a short list, just looking at it, and not because he was around a training camp, and I don't think that's the factor there, but I do think that's a guy that he was there when Edmonton was coming out of a rebuild. Even the Flyers, obviously, they don't have their Draisaitl or their McDavid, but the Flyers are heading to a stage where they want to be coming out of a rebuild. So, that kind of coach about the right age, all those kind of things, who's had the experience, who's been through the learning curve or whatever. If not him, that kind of a coach, I think we get first dibs. But, maybe they talk to Shazi and he just blows it away and they go, you know what? He'll come in and he already has a rapport. He'd hit the ground running, and that's not an impossible scenario either. But we'll see where the long list of candidates would be, and then when they're, how they would narrow it down. I do think they want to have that done relatively soon, ahead of the rush in June and in the offseason, the draft, whatever. I think they would like to get moving on that.
Yeah, no doubt. Woodcroft, by the way, has the highest winning percentage of any coach in Edmonton Oilers history. Yeah. When you consider what Glenn Sather did there, it's pretty impressive.
The only winning percentage, because I saw that with Al Arbor. It's like, well, what the hell? Why is he below 5? It's because he played when you coach along for ties, in the era of ties. Well, those can count as wins, so those count against your winning percentage. But with that caveat, it's all a very impressive feat.
643 points percentage for Jay Woodcroft. And we'll see if he is a candidate and how this process, what the timeline of this process looks like. I mentioned we'll hear more about that kind of at end of the season press availabilities and those kind of things as well. I saw that Dan Helferty did a sit down with Kevin Kurz from The Athletic, who covers the Flyers, and Dan seemed to intimate in the piece that he's ready. He speaks like a fan sometimes too, but he's ready for the team to start moving forward. And all indications are that's what they're going to try and do. I thought we got some signals out of Vancouver that Vancouver and Rick Tocchet are being a little territorial when they're reminding people that he has an option there. Yeah. It's saying, look, if we don't agree to that option, we're going to want some kind of compensation for you if you were to hire him.
Yeah.
That seems a bit territorial. So that tells me, too, that they do feel threatened by it.
No, for sure. For sure. I think they see that possibility is out there. And, I mean, Talk is a sentimental favorite to so many people in Philly, and I was certainly a generation you were as well who loved him as a player. One of my favorite players, as a matter of fact. Is Talk the right fit with the situation? I don't know that. I wouldn't say, oh well, I would say that you don't not hire somebody because of a past relationship with the organization, just as you don't hire somebody just for that reason. I think that if he decides to go out to leave Vancouver, explore his options, if it's a second round pick you're giving up, because they're not going to ask for a first, right? If it's a second round pick you're giving up, and you think Talk is that guy or whatever, you give up the second round pick if he's your guy. So.
No doubt. I got an email from a guy named John Donaldson. Thanks for sending it, John. And in the subject line, it says Sanheim second half of this season. Obviously, he hasn't put up the points he put up in the first half, Bill. And he's kind of like, how do we, what do we attribute the second half of Sanheim season to? I know we were doing Flyers end of season awards. One of the things we vote on, you and I, is the team's top defenseman. And I was really kind of perplexed by it. I think Sanheim's had a really good year, even though the points aren't there necessarily in the second half of the season. I think also part of the equation, and one thing you can attribute it to, has been more of a rotation and partner, because I think that is a big thing for him, and him feeling comfortable to get up the ice, therefore generate more offense.
No, for sure. I think it's a whole mixture of factors. That certainly is one of them. I don't think he hit a wall or looked tired or anything like that. I mean, when the Flyers had to go with 5 defensemen, or they went with 5 defensemen, he put in a 30-minute game, and I thought he was better at the end of that game than he was earlier in the game.
Yeah, he's got some motor, man. He's got a tank.
He really does.
For a big guy, that's odd.
Yeah.
It's usually smaller guys that have that tank,
Yeah, no, for sure. So, no, I think he's had a good season, not a good season. I mean, he's had a good season.
Yeah.
As you said, like the rotation of partners that hasn't helped. Just and also you can look at like his Drysdale's emerged a little bit and started to put up some points. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit less on Sanheim's shoulders to carry that end of it. And his tendency has typically been particularly, I mean, his November and December this season were the best of his career.
Yeah.
And that's, I think sometimes there's a little bit of a recency bias where you go, oh, well, he just,
he couldn't maintain
he couldn't maintain
elite
right? Well, I mean, he was playing at a level where I don't think anybody had a right to question him being in 4 nations, because he was playing so well up to when they selected the rosters. So did he play quite at that level the rest of the way? No, but on a team that doesn't have that real true number one Chris Pronger kind of, the
Drew Doughty,
that kind of a defenseman. If Sanheim on a top team is a number 3, even a 4 if they're really stacked in the blue line, which is still pretty darn good in this league, a guy who can get you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So generally speaking, he's one of the least of my concerns on a game in and game out basis, and also the way that he's always going to be a pretty quiet guy, but he has become a leader on that team.
Yeah.
And if you remembering Travis as just coming into the NHL out of junior hockey, he hardly ever spoke above a whisper. He was just one of the things, and I asked him, when Danny Briere had said this is an opportunity for guys who maybe were reluctant to speak up or reluctant to try to step up, take the bull by the horns, and take a bigger bite of the team, which can be hard for younger players. And I asked him, when you were a young player, was it hard for you? And he said yes. That it takes a little while. You have to earn your stripes before you feel the confidence a little bit more to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Sanheim's done that to where he is. Even though he's not the most vocal guy, he has become one of the team leaders, and I think that I think he's grown in a lot of ways as a hockey player, and I still think that he's a valuable piece here for a number of years to come. And definitely one of those trades that thank goodness they didn't end up making.
St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean. Sometimes things work out your way. A guy doesn't want to waive his no trade, and you end up not making the trade, and you look back and thank goodness he didn't, because
played out the right way. I mean, we had him on not that far back on Flyers Daily when I was at Flyers Training Center one day. The detail in which he broke down how he worked on his game, how he's the last guy off the ice all the time at practice, and he was just working on flipping pucks off the backhand. It's one of those things that looks simple the way NHL players do it, but he talked about working on his one-timer because it wasn't good. Now he's showing other guys how to get the one-timer off, and the work he's put into his game allowed him, and because his game elevated, to take that step. Because a lot of times players won't take that step in a locker room because you're afraid that the more established guys will be like, you speak up, and they're going to be like, well, who are you? Like, you got to earn that right to speak up in those locker rooms, and it takes some time. One thing that's flown under the radar with the dismissal of John Tortorella, and I brought up to somebody that I was talking to the other day, the verbal altercation with Cam York, and that's nothing new. That happens all the time, and John Tortorella and many coaches, Ken Hitchcock, and a lot of coaches around the league are famous for trying to get a reaction out of a guy. The most underrated thing about this is I love the fact that Cam York bit back. That's what Torts wanted him to do.
He said that. Yeah, he said that a couple of years that he tried to get a reaction, and York would never bite. Well,
Ristolainen didn't bite at first either. Then he bit, and look what happened. His game broke through.
Right.
I think that's an important element. I think you're going to see. We'll see how it plays out over the summer with Cam York, and he's got an RFA and everything. Nobody's off limits in Philadelphia. But if he's back here, I think he's got a player that's going to come back. I think he's got that confidence of I'll prove your ass wrong. Till I don't care if you're here or not. I'm going to prove you wrong. So I think he's going to have some bite in that regard going forward. We went from one Travis in Sanheim. Let's go to his best friend in the other Travis, Konecny. Konecny down the stretch here, Bill. Hasn't been able to maintain. We've talked about it. You had mentioned, in January, he took that hit and it looks like he's dealing with something. He'll never say it. But since the 29th of January in 26 games, he's only got 3 goals. Now he does have 16 points in that period of time with 3 goals and 13 assists. And there's a lot of narrative out there that he's a guy that is Mr. October, November, maybe December, but doesn't finish strong. Well, last year when the team couldn't get anything done offensively in the last 26 games of the year, he finished with 26 points. Right. So I think that's a false. I look back to other seasons as well. He's not a slow finisher. He doesn't usually fall off. The 3 goals for somebody that you expect to carry you in the goal scoring department is concerning. I think he's dealing with something as well. But it's nothing that has me hugely concerned going into this next contract.
No, and also he just hit the 50 assist mark for the season too. I know that for whatever reason, playing guys who make plays on the wing tend to we want guys who are going to score goals. Well, if you have an assist, someone scored a goal, and when you do them in high volume,
and the way some of his assists take place, there's no goal without the distribution that he provides a lot of times.
Exactly. These are not
from Michkov.
These are not soft assists, and when you run them up in high numbers, it's not an accident. Yeah. So you can really look back in the 2000s. The Flyers haven't really had a ton of guys hit the 50 assist mark. And I do think that deserves some recognition here. He won't hit his goal total from last season, where it looked like he was going to do that, have another 30 goals or whatever. But he still is contributing in other ways too, and you can see it coming back in his game. I really like the way that line has looked together.
Me too. Yeah.
And ever since Michkov moved over, playing the left side there. Couturier adds that stabilizing two-way game to that line. I really like in most games how they've looked together. That's something that while numbers and momentum don't carry over, you know that having the option of having both guys in the same line is a viable option. Yeah. And I guess we've always kind of known that Michkov in particular is a guy who doesn't mind roaming the whole ice surface. So where you're lining up on a faceoff isn't necessarily going to end up going anyway. So the way those two have really found quick and very strong chemistry as line mates, that to me is one of those positive things over the latter part of the season, and maybe you can take into another year. In picking the Bobby Clark Trophy winner, it really took me a second to say it's Konecny. It couldn't be anybody else.
He's got 74 points in 77 games this season, and as you said, he hits the 50 mark. The thing about that line that's worked to me is you have two wingers playing positionless hockey in the offensive zone with a very position-conscious center in Sean Couturier. I think he's a big part of why that works.
No doubt.
And those two are positionless, even though Michkov, most of this year, I'd say 90% of the games this season has played right wing. He has scored the most goals on the left side, and his highest area of scoring opportunities and high-level scoring chances are also from the left side, in the middle, not really wide on the left. He invades the middle of the ice quite a bit, and that's what makes him so incredibly effective. I'm so looking forward to him next year and more additions being made to this team and how the summer's going to play out. But 5 games to go, Bill. I can't believe it. There's only 5 left on. You look at the 82 in the beginning and you go, oh, the season's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And so I love the grind and the up and down of 82. And I look at the schedule now and I only see the Rangers, the Islanders, the Ottawa Senators, Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Buffalo Sabres left on this schedule. It gives me anxiety already because I feel hockey off season coming. But 5 games to go. We'll see where they finish. Right now, as we have this conversation, the 4th best odds to win the lottery.
Yeah, well, when the Flyers, after the Flyers won those 3 games, and I remember saying it's like everybody had games in hand on the Flyers at that point, right? So they were going to be sitting around
2 games in 11 days.
Right. So other teams were going to be getting points. And even teams that there was a point or two of them that are struggling towards the bottom end, they're going to probably win a game or two along the way too. Yeah. So you're just going to finish where you're going to finish. The Montreal game is an example of, like, as you said, water finds its level, because the Flyers most certainly didn't tank that game. They competed really hard in that game. They lost it, right? It was, and they had the previous game against Buffalo. That's a game where the Flyers gave 3 goals in a row at one point, but they stuck with it and they found a way to win. And those were still, well, the points aren't really what you want to take out of it. I just can't abide the whole idea of just like going out to lose, specifically to lose.
Yeah,
it will work itself out.
You don't want young players to develop then, if that's what you want.
Exactly.
And I think there's something to be gained here,
and not for sure. And it gives you a chance to look at guys, evaluate them. Again, it's not necessarily the points, right? Peltier has had an opportunity to move up in the lineup. He's looked a lot better.
Starting to see what everybody told us he was.
Yeah, he's looked like the guy he was in Calgary this season, right? Yeah. You see the speed, you see the hustle. You see that he's a really clever passer.
Yep. The pass he made on the 1 goal to Paling was incredible.
That was tremendous. And you see more of that. I talked a pretty fair amount of that with Calgary this season before the trade was made. I mean, he has some. He was a 1st-round pick.
Yeah, got a lot of enthusiasm to his game too.
Well, yeah, that's very infectious, the way that he plays. So seeing a young guy like him, like I don't know Carson Dorward is going to fit into the NHL plan next year. They had to burn the first year, but he built a case to compete in camp and maybe win a job out of camp.
He looked out of place. He skates
that's
well.
what I was going to say. Like, he skates pretty well. Got a little bit of even power play time. Played different situations. He didn't look overwhelmed against an allowed building in an atmosphere where the team they were playing against certainly had a lot to play for.
Yeah.
I thought it was an encouraging debut. I mean, these are the things. I'm really hoping that the time comes very soon that these aren't the things we're talking about. As the games are winding down to 5 or so, but it's the reality of where the Flyers are. But these are the things you can try to take from the games that are remaining, and we'll see what happens over the next week or so. I like the fact that the Flyers didn't come out after 4-night layoff, 5 days, 4 nights. And just looked flat in the first period. They came out actually were the better team in that first period.
Yeah, they gave up 4 shots on goal.
Yeah. So,
and that building was buzzing, boy.
It was, and they were just dying. They were just dying, and they had the building quiet in that first period. And then even the second period, they were nervous. They were nervous because they were getting goalied.
Yeah.
You
can always, in Montreal, like Smitty said on the game broadcast, that they celebrate everything like they just won the cup, which they haven't done since '93. But that fan base is rabid. It's one of the great temples of sport. How about your NHL debut at Montreal in an atmosphere like that? It's pretty cool for Carson Dorward. If he hangs around, the next one's in Madison Square Garden. It's some pretty good buildings to start your career. So good on him. We'll see what happens over the next calendar week, about a week and a half later left in the season as the Flyers play it out, and we'll still get some more information. I would imagine we're not going to go 2 years in a row with no movement in the lottery. Last year, it ended up being exactly how the standings dictated it. We'll see if the Flyers can get a little lady luck, move up to the top. You never know. And you get whoever the top picks. Who do you think that your number 1 overall pick is going to be, Bill?
It'll be Schaefer.
You think it'll be Schaefer?
It goes first overall. When you have a guy who's a potential franchise defenseman, in the draft, you just have to go. You have to take that. You have to take that player.
You have no choice. What about Misa? Is Misa in 2 there?
I think Misa has a real good shot of being number 2. There are some quality centers up near the top. Frondell, Swedish centers, a really good complete player, very good shooter too.
Remind you at all of the great Swede Peter Forsberg at all?
Well, I mean he doesn't have Peter's vision.
Yeah,
I mean
that's an unfair comparison, by the way.
I was going to say, he's not going to be throwing reverse hits that are going to, I mean, so, but I think he's going to be a very good NHL pro. Is there a franchise defenseman? I don't know that. I don't know if there's a generational guy certainly among there, but there are guys in there that have a lot of skill. Being in that top 5 is where you want to be because after that, the number of question marks for each guy starts to increase. Even a guy like Hagens might, you hear buzz that he's maybe dropped out of the top 5. I'd actually be interested to see where a guy like Craig Button would have him.
Mm-hmm.
But
we'll have to get Craig on here coming up. Our annual with him. I had corresponded with him right before I was diagnosed, and he was ready to come on. So, I'll have to get Craig on. Let's talk about that. Yeah. But why is he dropped, Bill?
Well, part of it is that when you're a smaller center, and now definitely there's a premium on bigger body guys, right? And also sometimes when a guy has been, I mean, Hagen's a guy's name has been out there for a number of years.
Yep.
Like Bundy, who he's not really a draft guy, but he knew of him a couple of years. He actually see it. It was like this kid's talent level's off the charts. Now you get the he's going to be like a lesser version of Hughes, but which is still not too bad, right? But so I think when a guy gets scouted a lot and his name is out there even before his draft year, it can work against him because people see what his abilities are, and then he gets nitpicked for flaws a lot of times. So that might be a guy that might not be in that range. And I'm interested also to see where Caleb Desnoyers goes, and not because who his brother is, just because that's a prospect who checks a lot of boxes. If the Flyers are not in that top 2-3 kind of range, that might be a guy who might come into play for him.
Yeah, I think of Hagen's. Do I think of Shane Wright? Remember, he was the guy, the top guy for 2 years. For 2 years
before his draft year.
Yeah, and it didn't happen. So, but we'll see how that plays out. A ton of skill there. We'll see where the Flyers end up picking and what they're able to get done, what a timeline is for that player as well. Bill, great stuff. Check out Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and also at NHL.com. Thanks to everybody for listening. Hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell. If you're listening via a regular podcast, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star rating and review as well while you're at it. We always appreciate those. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.